Hello, and welcome to All Top 5s. Today I'll be talking about a fascinating but often controversial topic, near-death experiences. A near-death experience is a series of sensations a person may undergo when death is close or upon them. There are hundreds of detailed accounts of near-death experiences and thousands more claims and stories by people from all walks of life. Scientific research suggests that near-death experiences are hallucinations that occur under the extreme stress of nearly dying, but a lot of researchers think that it's a more spiritual encounter. Here are 5 of the most incredible accounts of near-death experiences ever told. Number 5. Howard Pitman. In 1979, a Baptist minister called Howard Pitman was undergoing surgery when he died in the middle of the procedure and had an intense near-death experience. In his free ebook, Placebo, he explains how he was shown around heaven before receiving a message from God himself. Pitman describes his spirit being lifted from his body by angels, then passing through some kind of dimension wall into second heaven. He saw countless demon spirits that dwelled there and felt repulsed. The angels showed him more demon spirits all over that realm, telling him that there was no love there, before taking him back above the city streets, back on Earth, where he saw people about their daily lives, stalked by these very demons. After travelling through a brilliant, beautiful light tunnel, where Pitman gazed upon saints transcending from Earth, he arrived before the gates of third heaven, a place that radiated joy and warmth. Soon he was at the throne of God, where his faith was to be tested. God spoke to him in anger, pointing out all the promises that he had broken in his life. Despite his protestations, Pitman eventually accepted his condemnation with a solemn Amen. Suddenly he felt his soul fill with light and love, realizing that his physical life back on Earth wasn't as important as he'd believed. God then gave him a message for the people of Earth and sent him back to his physical body. The message contained proclamations of God recruiting an army to reform both religion and the world, shaking them to their very core. A reminder that true Christianity is a complete dedication of heart and soul, and a warning against Satan being a personal devil. Howard Pitman has held to his testimony for years, but many people have doubts over this very far-fetched experience. Could it be that Pitman, a long-time church leader, had hallucinated what he wanted to believe? Or could it be that he was put to the test by God himself and given a true warning for all mankind to heed? Whatever you think, it's an amazing, vivid experience that sits easily within the top 5. Number 4. Nadia McCaffrey. In 1952, 7-year-old Nadia McCaffrey was playing in the fields near her grandparents' home in France when she came across a venomous snake. As she froze in fear, it lunged for her and bit her on the ankle. She ran back to her grandmother at the house, consciousness fading. The doctors were called and injected her with a vaccine, at which point she fell into a 10-day coma. Nadia was unaware of the real world around her, but instead felt removed to a different dimension. She noticed a woman made of light hovering above her bed, who spoke to her and filled her with warmth and well-being, and a feeling of being connected to everything and everyone through the power of love. Nadia left her body behind and floated up into the Lady of Light's embrace, where she was told, "Be strong and let's all love one another. There are many ways to love. When the time will come, you will open yourself to others and share this message of love. To speak to me is prayer, and to pray is love." Nadia returned to her body, painless but still in that coma. This encounter occurred a second time, with the Lady of the Light speaking the same message to her, but adding that she was about to return to her life, as she had a lot to learn and accomplish. She said, "My love will always be with you, never forget." Nadia recalls that at this point the light form was wearing a white gown with a garment of blue fabric across her head and shoulders, and a green snake at her feet and a drop of blood on her foot. She crossed her arms in a symbol of rest, and then Nadia awoke to pain and misery. She had had no pulse for the 10 minutes prior to reawakening. For years afterwards, Nadia had trouble dealing with this memory and yearned desperately to return to the Lady of Light's warm embrace, considering committing suicide on several occasions. Slowly, she came round to accept the message that she'd been given, and to this day she works with the terminally ill, believing deeply in the power of love and passing it on to those who are dying. Was Nadia actually visited by the brilliant embodiment of love itself in her time of dying, or were these the incredible memories of a poisoned, feverish child? Either way, the message is a beautiful one that can actually apply to all of us. Number 3. Betty Eadie. In 1973, Betty Eadie was in hospital recovering from an operation. From nowhere, she felt herself drifting away from her body and her soul releasing. 3 angelic forms appeared and spoke of a past life that she had forgotten, and then gave her free movement to travel to places simply by thinking of them. She also underwent an entire life review, where the consequences of each of her actions during life on Earth were shown to her in great detail and weighed against each other, positive and negative. Afterwards, she passed through a tunnel with a bright light at the end, where she saw other spirits in a similar stage of transition. Betty followed this light and entered heaven, where she encountered Jesus Christ, who she felt radiated love and somehow answers to her many questions. She was guided through this ethereal realm, learning much of the way heaven and earth connect through prayer and other religious subjects. She also visited a vast library of sorts that allowed her to know instantly all there is to know about any person or other form of creation throughout history, and to view them on Earth and throughout the universe. Betty was told she would return to Earth to take on a mission given to her by the heavens, though with many of the details of this mission being withheld from her waking memory. Despite being reluctant to return to corporeal form, she agreed that it was necessary and reawoke from her lifeless state, a process Betty described as unpleasant and depressing. She had been declared clinically dead of a hemorrhage, but it's unclear how long she had actually been in this state before her reawakening. Betty's experience weighed heavily on her to begin with, and she suffered from depression for a long time, a result of being made to leave the wondrous experience of heaven. Eventually, she began sharing her story through talks and groups, and she wrote books giving full details of her account, working with others who had had near-death experiences of their own. She incited a lot of controversy with her account, owing to her confident statements that God and Jesus are distinctly different beings, rather than the combined entity promoted by the Holy Trinity ideology. She also maintained the view that there is no one true Christianity, but different levels of the religion for each person depending on their particular spirituality and enlightenment. It's these controversial claims that make Betty Eadie's experience a truly intriguing one, as well as the enormous amount of information and enlightenment she gained from it, though only Betty knows the entire truth. Number 2. Lingza Chalky. Although a historical account, the tale of Lingza Chalky's near-death experience is an amazing one, and is a phenomenon known in Tibet as delok, meaning returned from death. In 16th century Tibet, Lingza Chalky found herself in an out-of-body state. Looking down at her bed, she saw it contained a dead pig wearing her clothes. She went to each of her family members trying to communicate with them, but, frustratingly, they couldn't see or hear her. Every time her children cried, she felt great pain and sadness battering her, and every time Buddhist practices were carried out, she felt great joy and happiness. The master of Lingza Chalky's village was practicing in a way that allowed her to join with his mind and become one with him, which gave her comfort and direction. She soon entered with this direction something called the Bardo realm, a transitional state of being well known in Buddhist teachings. She viewed this Bardo as a country on a map and saw that there was a bridge leading from it to hell, where the Lord of Death was judging the balance of good deeds and bad deeds carried out by the dead. Lingza Chalky met with many different people in this Bardo, including a traveller come to hell to free trapped souls. After traversing dimensions back into the real world, Lingza Chalky became one again with her body, and for the rest of her life she told what had happened to her and what she had learned, a near-death experience that showed her the realms of the afterlife. She was not alone in her near-death experience, or delok, as there have been many reports of such experiences even up until modern times. Although it's more difficult to believe the written account of someone who died around 500 years ago than a first-hand account from someone living today, that doesn't rule it out, and it serves as a mysterious addition to my top 5. Number 1. Mellon Thomas Benedict. Usually proclaimed as one of the most transcendental near-death experiences of modern times, Mellon Thomas Benedict's story is a miraculous one. Mellon Thomas was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer in 1982 and given only months to live. He hadn't given much, if any, thought to spirituality or religion until that point, as he had focused much of his mind on the failings and wars of humanity. He actually attributes his cancer to this negativity. One morning he suddenly found himself standing up over his sleeping body in the darkness, and the vivid sense of awareness he had was fuller than everyday life. For example, he could see all the rooms in his house simultaneously. Similar to other near-death experiences, Mellon Thomas noticed a beautiful light that drew him in. As he was approaching this light, he realized that he was nearing death, so he stopped and questioned what was going on. The light revealed what Mellon Thomas describes as a matrix of human souls, of higher selves, or oversouls. He learned that each higher self connects with each other, and they all link back to the source, the origin of energy and light. The interconnectivity of souls in this matrix, lacking any kind of religious labelling or prejudice, overwhelmed him and changed his view of humanity. The light told him that no soul was evil, it was a matter of circumstance, and that humankind wasn't doomed as he'd once thought. Mellon Thomas, eager to learn more, told the light of his desire to see the universe. He was carried into the light and viewed Earth, our solar system, our galaxy, other worlds, other life forms, all the universe's creations, indescribable infinity, in what he termed a stream of consciousness, infinite universes, something like fractals, filled with light. He felt that he was looking through God's eyes. He spent an unknown length of time in this light, learning more about our universe, the higher self matrix, and the cyclical nature of life within it, and soon he knew he was going to be reincarnated back on Earth. Instead of being reborn as a baby, he returned to his body in the hospice, where he had been dead for 90 minutes. 3 days later, he was fine and well, out of bed, and the terminal brain cancer was in complete remission, a miraculous rebirth. Mellon Thomas's account is unique in its vast detail, infinite scope, and length of time spent clinically dead. His account states that no religion or philosophy is true or untrue. All heavens exist, be they nirvana, paradise, the field of reeds, and so on, for all those who create them. And the collective human soul matrix is a continually reprocessed pure reality where we are all connected to each other and everything else. It's quite an amazing account, and probably the most incredible near-death experience ever told. In fact, there's a lot more in there that I just don't have time to cover in this particular video. Some people disregard Mellon Thomas's story as pain-induced hallucinations, coupled with an inner desire to believe in a better world. Others are astounded by his remarkable journey, convinced by his divinely acquired knowledge of complex scientific formulae and genetic codes that only a few top scientists in their fields know, which Mellon Thomas has never studied in his life, but somehow knew. But what do you think of Mellon Thomas's extraordinary vision of the past, present, and future? That's it from all top 5s for this week. Have you had a near-death experience, or do you know someone that has? Let me know in the comments below. And when posting or discussing these comments, please be respectful and considerate of others' opinions, beliefs, and experiences. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up, as it really does help me out. And you can subscribe for a new video every single Tuesday. Peace and love to each and every one of you, and I'll see you all next time on All Top 5s.